Super Bowl Sunday, the biggest night in America, but for one Uber driver, it's the worst day of his life. Rejected, ignored, invisible, door after door slams shut. Not you. We'll wait for another car. Sorry, we changed our minds. Marcus sits alone in his beat-up Toyota, watching the world celebrate while his phone stays silent. Bills overdue, family waiting, hope fading. Then a figure approaches through the rain. The door opens. A weathered hand reaches in. Mind if I ride with you, friend? Sometimes life's greatest moments come when you least expect them. Sometimes a single ride changes everything. Sometimes the person who gets in your car is Bruce Springsteen. This is the story of an Uber driver on Super Bowl night. This is the story of rejection turned into redemption. This is what happens when a rock legend meets a forgotten soul. What would you do if your worst day became your miracle? The windshield wipers beat a lonely rhythm against the February rain. Marcus Williams sat in his 2014 Toyota Camry, parked outside MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, watching thousands of people stream past his car like he didn't exist. The Super Bowl had just ended, and the parking lot was chaos, laughter, cheers, honking horns. Everyone seemed to be celebrating except him. His phone buzzed with another ride request. Marcus straightened his collar, checked his appearance in the rearview mirror, and accepted it. A family of 4 approached, the father wearing an expensive jersey, kids bouncing with post-game excitement. But when they saw Marcus through the window, his tired eyes, his old car, the worn seats despite his best efforts to keep them clean, the father shook his head. "We'll wait for another one," he said, not even looking Marcus in the eye. Cancel. Another ding on his rating. Another step closer to deactivation. Marcus had been driving for Uber for 3 years, but tonight was different. 2 weeks ago, he'd lost his main job at the distribution center. Budget cuts, they said. Nothing personal. But it felt personal when you had a 16-year-old daughter who needed braces, a wife working double shifts at the hospital, and a mortgage that didn't care about budget cuts. He'd been counting on Super Bowl Sunday, the biggest night for rides, the night that could make or break his month. But something was wrong. He'd been rejected 7 times already. Maybe it was the car, older than most, though he kept it spotless. Maybe it was him, 53 years old, graying temples, the kind of face that had seen too many disappointments. Or maybe it was just bad luck, the kind that seemed to follow him like a shadow lately. Another request. This time, a group of young executives, ties loosened, clearly drunk on expensive champagne. They took one look at his car and laughed. "Dude, seriously, this is what they send us," one of them said, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "It's like riding in my grandfather's car." They walked away, already pulling up the app to request another ride. Marcus gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. In the cup holder, his phone showed the notification he'd been dreading. "Your acceptance rate has fallen below our standards. You may be at risk for deactivation." The rain intensified, drumming on the roof like an accusation. Marcus thought about his daughter, Keisha. She'd hugged him before he left that evening, told him she believed in him. "You got this, Dad," she'd said, the same way she used to say it when he'd coach her little league team years ago. Back when he had a real job, back when he could afford to buy the team pizza after games, back when he felt like somebody. Now he felt like nobody. He was about to give up, to drive home, and figure out how to tell his wife that even Uber didn't want him anymore when his phone buzzed one more time. The pickup location was unusual. The far end of the parking lot, away from the crowds, near the service entrance. Marcus hesitated, probably another rejection waiting to happen. But what did he have to lose? He drove slowly through the rain, squinting through the foggy windshield. A single figure stood under a dim streetlight, collar turned up against the rain, a guitar case at his feet. The man was older, maybe early 70s, wearing a simple black jacket and jeans. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed money or importance. Marcus pulled up and lowered the window. "You request a ride?" The man smiled, and something about that smile was different from everyone else that night. It reached his eyes, made the lines around them crinkle with genuine warmth. "I did. You mind if I put this in the trunk?" He gestured to the guitar case. "No problem." Marcus popped the trunk and watched in his mirror as the man carefully placed the case inside, taking time to make sure it was secure. Musicians, Marcus thought. They always treated their instruments like children. The man slid into the back seat, and immediately the car felt different. Warmer somehow, despite the cold rain outside. "Thanks for stopping," he said, his voice gravelly but kind. "Been waiting a while. Seems like everybody's busy tonight." "Super Bowl," Marcus said, starting to drive. "Biggest night of the year." "You watch the game?" Marcus shook his head. "Working. Been out here since noon. Long day, must be exhausting." There was something in the way he said it, not patronizing but understanding, that made Marcus glance in the rearview mirror. The man was looking out the window, watching the celebrating crowds with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. "Where to?" Marcus asked, realizing he hadn't checked the destination. "Just drive for a bit if that's okay. I'll tell you when to stop. Sometimes I just need to move, you know. Think better when the world's passing by." It was an odd request, but the app showed the ride was paid for. Distance didn't matter. Marcus merged onto the highway, the stadium lights fading behind them. "You from around here?" the passenger asked. "Born and raised. Watched this stadium get built. Used to bring my daughter here when she was little, back when I could afford tickets. Not anymore." Marcus was surprised to hear himself answering honestly. Maybe it was the darkness, maybe it was the stranger's voice, but words started spilling out. "Lost my job couple weeks ago. Been trying to make it work with this, but..." He gestured at the car. "People see an old car, an old driver. They want something better. Been rejected all night. Can't blame them, I guess." "Why can't you blame them?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "Well, I mean, look at this car, look at me. If I had money, I'd probably want something nicer, too." The man leaned forward slightly. "Can I tell you something? I've been in a lot of cars in my life. Limos, tour buses, private jets even, but some of the best rides I've ever had were in cars just like this. You know why?" Marcus shook his head. "Because the driver was real, had stories, had life beaten into him but kept going anyway. That's worth more than leather seats and fancy water bottles." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the highway stretching ahead, the rain creating a cocoon around them. Marcus found himself relaxing for the first time all day. "Tell me about your daughter," the passenger said. So Marcus did. He told him about Keisha, how she played guitar, not well but with passion, how she wrote songs in her notebook, hiding them like secrets, how she'd stood up to bullies defending a kid with a stutter, how she volunteered at the senior center, playing her guitar for the residents, even though she was embarrassed by her mistakes. "She sounds special." "She is. Just wish I could do more for her. She deserves better than a father who can't even keep an Uber job." You know what she deserves? A father who goes out in the rain on Super Bowl Sunday, gets rejected 7 times, and keeps going for the 8th. That's what she deserves. That's what she has. Marcus felt his eyes burn. He blinked hard, focusing on the road. "Take the next exit," the passenger said. "There's a diner I know. Been going there for 40 years. The exit led to a part of Jersey Marcus knew but rarely visited anymore. Working-class neighborhood, the kind that had seen better days but still had pride. The diner was exactly what you'd expect. Neon sign with a few letters out. Parking lot more patches than original asphalt. Windows fogged with warmth and grease. "Come on," the passenger said. "Coffee's on me." "I can't. I'm working. You're my passenger. And I'm asking you to stop for coffee. Meter's running, right? I'm paying for the time." Marcus wanted to protest, but something in the man's voice made it sound less like a request and more like a gentle command. They ran through the rain to the entrance, the guitar case left safely in the trunk. Inside, the diner was nearly empty. A tired waitress looked up from her phone, and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God, she whispered. The passenger put a finger to his lips and winked. Just coffee for two, Dolores. Booth in the back. Dolores nodded, speechless, and led them to a corner booth. Marcus was confused by her reaction, but figured the man must be a regular, maybe a good tipper. They sat down, and the warmth of the diner seeped into Marcus's bones. He hadn't realized how cold he'd been, how tense. The coffee arrived, black, strong, perfect. You know, the passenger said, wrapping his hands around his mug, I used to drive a truck before everything changed, used to deliver auto parts around Freehold, knew every back road, every shortcut. Some nights I'd drive just to drive, radio playing, thinking about getting out, making something of myself. Did you? Get out, I mean. The man smiled. In a way, but I never forgot those drives, never forgot what it felt like to be invisible, to have people look right through you. It's a special kind of hurt, isn't it? Being there but not being seen. Marcus nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. But here's what I learned. The people who see you when you're invisible, those are the ones who matter. Your daughter sees you, your wife sees you, and right now, in this diner, I see you. I appreciate that, but seeing me doesn't pay the bills. No, it doesn't. The man pulled out his phone. What's your daughter's name again? Keisha. Last name? Williams, but why? The man typed something, then showed Marcus the screen. It was a video from 3 months ago, posted on YouTube. Keisha Williams, original song at Sunrise Senior Center. The view count was just 12. How did you? I have a lot of time on my hands, like to search for real music, real voices. Found this a while back. Your daughter, she's got something. He pressed play. There was Keisha, nervous, sitting in front of a small group of elderly residents. She started to play, missed a chord, blushed. Sorry, she said in the video. Let me start over. Don't apologize, honey, an old woman called out. We got nothing but time. Keisha smiled and started again. The song was simple, her voice untrained, but pure. She sang about heroes without capes, about fathers who came home tired but still helped with homework, about mothers who made miracles out of minimum wage. By the end, several of the residents were wiping their eyes. Marcus was crying now, not even trying to hide it. That song, the passenger said, that's about you, isn't it? Marcus nodded. She posted it 3 months ago, right after you lost your job, I'm guessing. That's her way of saying she sees you too. The man stood up, dropped a $100 bill on the table. Come on, I want to show you something. They went back to the car, and the man directed Marcus to drive to a small recording studio about 20 minutes away. It was closed, dark, but the man had a key. You own this place? Marcus asked. I record here sometimes, know the owner. He lets me use it when I need to think, to play without anyone watching. Inside, the studio was modest but professional. Gold records on the walls, photos of musicians Marcus vaguely recognized. The man went to a closet and pulled out a guitar, not the one from his case, a different one. It was beautiful but worn, with stickers and scratches that told stories. This was my first real guitar, he said. Bought it with money I saved from driving that truck. Played it in more dives and dumps than I can count. Played it when nobody would listen, when club owners told me I didn't have it, whatever it was supposed to be. He held it out to Marcus. I want Keisha to have it. I can't accept that. I don't even know who you are. The man laughed, and it was a good laugh, full and rich. I'm just a guy from Jersey who got lucky. But before I got lucky, I was a guy like you driving through the rain, wondering if anybody would ever see me. He set the guitar down and went to a desk, pulled out a business card. This is my manager. Call him tomorrow. Tell him Bruce said to set up a session for Keisha. Real studio time, real producer. Let her record that song properly. Marcus looked at the card, then back at the man. Bruce Springsteen. Guilty. But tonight I'm just a passenger who needed a ride. Marcus's legs felt weak. He sat down hard on the studio chair. I've been driving Bruce Springsteen around for 2 hours. You've been driving a guy who knows what it's like to be rejected. You know how many record labels turned me down, how many times I was told I wasn't good enough, didn't have the right look, the right sound. But I kept driving, metaphorically speaking, just like you keep driving literally. Bruce picked up the guitar again, started tuning it. This guitar has more songs in it. Needs someone young, someone with something to say. Your daughter has something to say. But why? Why would you do this for us? Bruce stopped tuning, looked Marcus straight in the eye. Because 40 years ago, someone did it for me. Guy named Mike Appel. Saw me playing in a dump. Crowd of maybe 10 people. He saw something nobody else did. Changed my life. I've been looking for ways to pay that forward ever since. He started playing. Something slow and haunting. Also, I watched all 12 views of your daughter's video. I was 11 of them. What? I kept going back to it. There's something there, Marcus. Raw, real. Reminds me why I started doing this in the first place. Not for the stadiums or the crowds, but for that connection, that moment when a song hits someone right where they live. Bruce played for a few more minutes, then stopped. You know what the hardest part of success is? Not the work to get there. That's actually simple. You just keep going. The hard part is remembering what it felt like before, remembering the hunger, the rejection, the fear that you're fooling yourself. Most people forget. They get comfortable, start believing they deserve it all. But I remember being invisible. He put the guitar in its case, a sturdy one with good latches. That's why I still drive around Jersey sometimes, looking for real people, real stories. Tonight, I found one. They left the studio, Bruce carefully carrying the guitar case. Back in the car, he directed Marcus to one more stop, a 24-hour Western Union. One more thing, Bruce said, going inside. Marcus waited, still in shock. When Bruce came back, he handed Marcus an envelope. Don't open it until you get home. Promise? I promise. The ride back to MetLife Stadium was quiet. Marcus's mind was spinning, trying to process everything. When they pulled up to where they'd started, the parking lot was empty except for a few cars. Bruce got his original guitar from the trunk, then turned to Marcus. You know what you're going to do now? Go home. Tell my wife and daughter about the craziest night of my life. No? Well, yes, but first, you're going to accept the next ride request, and the one after that. You're going to keep driving, but now you know something different. You know that every person who gets in your car has a story. Every rejection isn't about you, it's about them, their fears, their assumptions. You keep being you, Marcus. The world needs more people who keep driving through the rain. Bruce started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Marcus, that song your daughter wrote? Tell her to write more. The world needs songs about real heroes. Marcus watched Bruce Springsteen walk into the darkness, disappearing into the Jersey night like he'd never been there at all. For a moment, Marcus wondered if he'd imagined it all. Then he saw the guitar case in the back seat, the business card in his hand, his phone buzzed. Another ride request. This time, Marcus didn't hesitate. He accepted it. A young woman approached, looking tired, wearing a hospital uniform. Long night? She asked as she got in. You could say that, Marcus said, smiling. Where to? As they drove, she told him about her shift, about saving a life, about losing one. Marcus listened, really listened, the way Bruce had listened to him. When they reached her destination, she paused before getting out. Thank you, she said, for listening. Most drivers just want to get the ride over with. Everybody's got a story, Marcus said. Least I can do is hear it. After she left, Marcus sat in his car for a moment, then remembered the envelope. He opened it carefully. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. Marcus, this isn't charity. It's an investment. In you, in Keisha, in the idea that good people shouldn't have to disappear just because times get tough. Use it to keep driving, literally and figuratively. Your daughter needs to see her father fight for his dreams so she'll know how to fight for hers. Also, I meant what I said about the studio. Call my manager. Keisha's got something. Don't let her hide it. And don't you hide either. The world sees you now. BSPS. Check the glove compartment. Marcus opened the glove compartment. Inside was a USB drive labeled Keisha's Song, Rough Mix. His hands shaking, he plugged it into the car's audio system. It was Keisha's song from the senior center, but professionally mixed, cleaned up. Bruce must have had someone work on it from the YouTube video. It sounded incredible. The rest of the night was a blur. Marcus drove until dawn, accepting every ride, talking to every passenger. A man just divorced, moving out of his house. A woman on her way to the airport, starting a new life in California. A teenager sneaking home past curfew, terrified of his parents' reaction. Marcus listened to them all, really listened, the way Bruce had taught him. When he finally got home, the sun was rising. His wife Patricia was in the kitchen, getting ready for her shift. She looked up, saw his face, and immediately knew something had happened. "Marcus, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," he said, and for the first time in months he meant it. "Everything's about to change." He told her everything, showed her the check, the business card, played Keisha's song. Patricia cried, then laughed, then cried again. They woke up Keisha together, and when she saw the guitar, she couldn't speak. She just held it, running her fingers over the scratches and stickers, each one a piece of history. "This was his," she whispered. "It's yours now," Marcus said. "He heard your song. He wants you to record it properly." Keisha played the guitar for the first time, tentatively, then with growing confidence. It had a different sound than her cheap acoustic, richer, fuller. It sounded like it had stories to tell. The call to Bruce's manager led to a session at the same studio Marcus had visited that night. The producer was patient, kind, and drew out of Keisha a performance that surprised everyone, especially Keisha herself. The song was released independently with Bruce's quiet support, but not his name. He insisted it stand on its own merits. It did. The song found its audience slowly, organically. People who'd been where Marcus had been, who'd felt invisible, who'd been rejected and kept going anyway. It became an anthem for the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones who keep driving through the rain. Marcus kept driving for Uber, but differently now. He'd upgraded his car with some of the money, but nothing fancy. He wanted to stay connected to the real world, to real people. Every passenger was a potential story, a possible connection. He became known as the driver who really listened, who cared. His ratings soared, but more importantly, he collected stories, connections, moments of human grace. One night, about a year later, he picked up a passenger from Madison Square Garden. The app showed the name as BS. Marcus smiled, knowing immediately who it was. Bruce got in, looking tired but satisfied after a 3-hour concert. "How's Keisha?" he asked without preamble. "Opening for a band next week. Small venue, but it's a start. Best place to start. Small venues are where you learn if you really have it." "She wanted me to give you something," Marcus said, handing back an envelope. Bruce opened it. Inside was a photo from Keisha's first real show, her playing his old guitar, and a note. "Mr. Springsteen, this guitar had more songs in it. Thank you for helping me find them. Thank you for seeing my dad when everyone else looked away. Keisha." Bruce stared at the photo for a long moment. "You know what I realized that night, Marcus?" "What's that?" "I went out looking for something real, something to remind me why I do what I do. I found it in your car. You and Keisha. You reminded me that the best songs aren't about the people on stage. They're about the people in the audience, the ones who live the stories we're trying to tell." They drove in comfortable silence, two men from Jersey who understood each other. As they pulled up to Bruce's destination, he turned to Marcus one last time. "Keep driving, Marcus. World needs drivers like you." "I will, long as there are stories to hear." Bruce nodded, started to get out, then turned back. "Oh, and Marcus, that night, when all those people rejected you, their loss. They missed the best ride of their lives." As Bruce disappeared into the night once again, Marcus thought about that Super Bowl Sunday, the worst night that became the best night. He thought about rejection and redemption, about being seen and seeing others. His phone buzzed with another ride request. He smiled and accepted it. Somewhere in Jersey, Keisha was practicing a new song. It was about a rainy night, an old Toyota, and how sometimes angels look like tired rock stars who just need a ride. She played it on a guitar that had traveled from dive bars to stadiums and back to dive bars again. A guitar that knew the journey was more important than the destination. Marcus drove on, through the Jersey night, carrying stories, collecting moments, no longer invisible, but illuminated by every passenger who chose to share their journey with him. He'd learned the secret Bruce had tried to teach him, that everyone is somebody, everyone has a song, and sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply see them, hear them, and keep driving. The rain had stopped, but Marcus wouldn't have minded if it hadn't. He'd learned to drive through anything now. Behind him, in the distance, the lights of MetLife Stadium glowed against the sky, a reminder of where it all started. But Marcus didn't look back. He looked ahead, to the next passenger, the next story, the next moment of unexpected grace. His phone showed 5 stars, a perfect rating, but that wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was the message from his latest passenger. "Thank you for listening, thank you for seeing me." Marcus typed back, "Thank you for sharing your story." Then he accepted the next ride, and the next, and the next, driving through the night, through the rain, through the doubt and fear and rejection, toward something better, toward connection, toward hope, toward the moment when someone else would need to be seen, to be heard, to be reminded that they mattered. Because that's what Bruce Springsteen had taught him that night. Not just to drive, but to drive with purpose. Not just to transport people, but to transport their spirits. Not just to be a driver, but to be a witness to the beautiful, broken, brave human experience. And in a small recording studio in Jersey, Bruce's old guitar waited for Keisha to return, ready for the next song, the next story, the next moment when music would bridge the gap between the invisible and the seen. The story that started with rejection had become a story of recognition. The Uber driver who couldn't get a passenger had become the driver everyone requested. The daughter who hid her songs now sang them for growing crowds. And somewhere Bruce Springsteen smiled, knowing he'd paid forward what had been given to him, the gift of being seen, of being heard, of being believed in. Marcus drove until dawn, then went home to his family, to his life that was the same but completely different. He was still a driver, still a father, still a husband. But now he was also a keeper of stories, a collector of moments, a man who'd learned that the worst night of your life might just be the beginning of everything. Keisha was waiting for him in the kitchen, Bruce's guitar across her lap, a notebook full of new songs beside her. "Dad," she said, "I wrote something new. Want to hear it?" Marcus sat down, exhausted but energized, broken but healing, rejected but finally fully accepted, not by the world, but by himself. "Play it, baby," he said. "Play it loud." And she did, filling their small kitchen with music that sounded like redemption, like hope, like a Toyota Camry driving through the rain with precious cargo, not in the back seat, but behind the wheel. The sun rose over New Jersey, painting the sky in shades of possibility. Marcus closed his eyes and listened to his daughter sing, thinking of Bruce, of that night, of all the nights since. He thought of every passenger who'd shared their story, every connection made, every moment of grace discovered in the space between pickup and destination. He'd been an Uber driver who couldn't get a ride. Now he was an Uber driver who understood that every ride was a chance for magic, for connection, for the kind of small miracle that changes everything. Bruce had been right. The world needed drivers like him. Not because he was special, but because he'd learned to see the special in everyone else. And that, more than any tip, any rating, any fare, was the real treasure of the road. Keisha finished her song, looked at her father with eyes that sparkled with tears and determination. Think Bruce would like it. Marcus thought of the man who'd sat in his back seat, who'd seen him when he was invisible, who'd changed everything with a simple question. "Mind if I ride with you, friend?" "I think he'd love it," Marcus said. But more importantly, do you love it? Keisha nodded, hugging the guitar. It feels true, Dad. It feels real. Then that's all that matters, baby. That's all that ever matters. Outside, the city was waking up, full of people needing rides, needing connection, needing someone to see them. Marcus's phone was already buzzing with requests. He looked at it, then at his daughter, then at his wife coming down the stairs. "One more song," he said. "Then I've got to get back out there." "Still driving?" Patricia asked, kissing his forehead. "Always," Marcus said, "but now I know why." They sat together in their small kitchen, a family transformed by a single night, a single ride, a single moment of recognition. Keisha played another song, then another, the guitar that had played in stadiums now playing for an audience of two, but with no less passion, no less power. And somewhere in Jersey, Bruce Springsteen woke up, looked out his window at the same sunrise, and thought about the driver who'd reminded him of himself, the daughter who sang truth, the guitar that had found its next voice. He picked up his phone, scrolled to the Uber app, and smiled at the memory. Then he grabbed his keys and headed for his car. Sometimes, he thought, you don't need a driver. Sometimes you need to drive yourself, to remember the road, the journey, the search for something real. But he was glad he'd taken that ride, glad he'd found Marcus on the worst night that became the best night. Because that's what life was. A series of rides, some rejected, some accepted, all leading somewhere you never expected to go. The story could have ended there, with sunrise and songs and hope restored. But life, like the road, keeps going. 6 months later, Keisha's video of her studio recording went viral. Not massive viral, but enough. Enough to get noticed by other musicians, enough to get invitations to open for bigger acts, enough to prove that the investment Bruce had made was paying dividends in ways that couldn't be measured in money. Marcus kept driving, but now he also spoke at local community centers about resilience, about keeping going when the world tells you to stop. He told the story of that Super Bowl Sunday, and every time he told it, someone in the audience would come up afterward with tears in their eyes, saying, "I needed to hear that. I was about to give up." One evening, Marcus picked up a passenger from a corporate office building. The man was in his 40s, suit wrinkled, tie loosened, carrying a cardboard box of personal items. He'd just been laid off. 20 years, the man said, staring at the box. 20 years. And they gave me an hour to pack. Marcus looked in the rearview mirror, saw himself from a year ago. "Can I tell you a story?" he asked. By the time they reached the man's destination, both of them had tears in their eyes. The man looked at Marcus with something like wonder. "That really happened? Bruce Springsteen really got in your car?" "He did, but that's not the important part." "What is?" "The important part is that I kept driving. After 7 rejections, I took the 8th ride. That's all any of us can do. Take the next ride, accept the next chance, keep moving forward even when we can't see where we're going." The man nodded, gripped Marcus's hand through the window. "Thank you. I think I really needed this ride tonight." "We all need the right ride at the right time," Marcus said. "Sometimes we're the passenger, sometimes we're the driver. Tonight, I got to be both." A year after that Super Bowl Sunday, Marcus got a call from Bruce's manager. Bruce was doing a special concert, a small venue, invitation only. He wanted Marcus and his family there, and he wanted Keisha to open. The venue was the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, legendary in Jersey music history. Keisha stood on the stage where Bruce had played decades ago, where countless musicians had found their voice or lost it, where dreams were made and broken with equal frequency. She was terrified. Marcus found her backstage, holding Bruce's old guitar like a life preserver. "I can't do this, Dad. These people aren't here for me. They're here for him." "You're right," Marcus said. "They're not here for you. They don't know you yet. But you know what? 40 years ago, people weren't there for Bruce either, until they were, until he made them care. That's what you're going to do tonight." "How do you know?" "Because you're my daughter, and we don't give up after 7 rejections. We take the 8th ride. Keisha smiled through her tears, understanding the reference, the history, the weight of it. She walked onto the stage, just her and the guitar, facing an audience that included music industry executives, famous musicians, critics who could make or break careers with a single review. She thought about running. Then she thought about her father, driving through the rain, being rejected again and again, taking one more ride. "Hi," she said into the microphone. "I'm Keisha Williams. My dad's an Uber driver. This song is about him, about all the invisible heroes who keep going when the world tells them to stop." She played the song, the one from the senior center, but now with a year of experience, of growth, of understanding behind it. The audience was silent, then someone started crying, then someone started clapping, then everyone was on their feet. Bruce came out for his set, hugged Keisha as she left the stage. "That guitar's got more songs in it," he whispered. "Keep finding them." During his performance, Bruce told the story of the Uber ride, of meeting Marcus, of finding Keisha's video. "Sometimes," he said, "you go looking for America and find it in the back of a Toyota Camry. Sometimes the best songs aren't the ones we write, but the ones we live." He called Marcus up on stage, and for a moment, the Uber driver who'd been invisible stood in the spotlight of the stone pony, visible to everyone, seen and celebrated and understood. "This man," Bruce said, "taught me something I'd forgotten. That the ride isn't about where you're going. It's about who you become along the way. It's about who you pick up, whose stories you carry, whose lives you touch just by showing up and saying, 'Where to?'" The crowd erupted, and Marcus stood there, overwhelmed, thinking about every rejection, every struggle, every moment he'd wanted to quit. They'd all led here, to this moment, but more importantly, they'd led to every passenger he'd helped. Every story he'd heard, every connection he'd made. After the show, in the parking lot of the Stone Pony, Marcus sat in his Uber, the app on, waiting for a ride. Keisha and Patricia had gone home, but Marcus wasn't ready for the night to end. A request came in. "Pick up at the Stone Pony." Marcus laughed at the cosmic joke of it, accepted the ride. It was a young woman, maybe 25, carrying a guitar case. She'd been at the show, trying to network, trying to get noticed, failing. "Rough night?" Marcus asked. "You could say that. Nobody wanted to talk to me. I came all the way from Ohio, spent my last money on a ticket, thought this would be my chance." Marcus started driving, glancing at her in the mirror. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah, can I tell you a story about the worst night of my life?" By the time he dropped her off at her motel, Sarah was crying, laughing, and planning. She wouldn't give up. She'd keep playing, keep driving metaphorically, keep taking the next chance. "Thank you," she said. "I think you might have just saved my life, or at least my dream." "Pass it on," Marcus said. "Someday you'll be the one driving, and someone else will need to hear your story." The cycle continued. Every night, Marcus drove. Every night he collected and shared stories. The ripples from that Super Bowl Sunday spread outward, touching lives in ways that couldn't be tracked or measured. Keisha's music career grew slowly but surely. She never became a superstar, but she didn't need to. She played for people who needed to hear her songs, people who'd been invisible, rejected, overlooked. She became successful in the way that mattered. She made a difference. Bruce would sometimes appear in Marcus's car, always unexpected, always when Marcus needed the reminder of where this all started. They'd drive and talk, two Jersey guys who understood that the road was home, that the journey was the destination. "You ever regret it?" Bruce asked one night. "Not taking the money and running? You could have quit driving, done something else." "This is my something else," Marcus said. "Every ride is a chance to change someone's night, maybe their life." "Why would I give that up?" Bruce smiled, looked out at the Jersey night. "That's the secret, isn't it? The thing I've been trying to say in songs for 50 years. It's not about getting somewhere. It's about recognizing the sacred in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the everyday. It's about seeing people and being seen." They drove in silence, comfortable in their understanding, Two men who'd found each other on the worst night that became the best night, who discovered that rejection was just redirection, that invisibility was just waiting for the right eyes to see you. 5 years after that Super Bowl Sunday, Marcus was given an award by the city of Newark for his community service, for the hundreds of people he'd helped through his informal taxi therapy sessions, for the foundation he'd started with Bruce's help to provide instruments to kids who couldn't afford them. Standing at the podium, looking out at the crowd that included his family, Bruce, and dozens of passengers whose lives he'd touched, Marcus thought about that night in the rain, about 7 rejections, about almost giving up. 5 years ago, he said, I was nobody, an Uber driver who couldn't get a ride on the biggest night of the year. I was invisible, rejected, ready to quit. Then someone saw me. Someone took a chance on me, and everything changed. He looked at Bruce, who nodded slightly, that same warm smile from that first night. But here's what I learned. We're all somebody. We're all visible to someone. We just have to keep driving until we find them. We have to keep taking the next ride, the next chance, the next opportunity to connect. Because that's all life is, a series of rides, some short, some long, all taking us somewhere we need to go, even if we don't know it yet. He held up the award, but his eyes were on Keisha, now 21, preparing to release her first full album on a small but respected label. This isn't my award, Marcus said. This belongs to everyone who's ever been rejected and kept going. Everyone who's ever been invisible and kept shining. Everyone who's ever taken one more ride when 7 had already said no. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He was thinking about tonight, about the rides he'd take after this ceremony, about the stories he'd hear, the connections he'd make. The award was nice, but it wasn't the destination. It was just another stop on the journey. Later that night, after the ceremony, after the congratulations, after the photos and handshakes, Marcus sat in his Uber outside the venue. His phone buzzed with a ride request. He looked at the pickup location. It was right there, at the venue. He accepted it, wondering who needed a ride at this hour, from this place. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was a janitor, still in his work uniform, having just finished cleaning up after the ceremony. He got in the car, looking exhausted. Long night? Marcus asked. You could say that. Cleaned up after that big award thing. Some driver getting honored. Must be nice, being recognized for your work. Marcus smiled, started driving. You know, I knew a guy once, a janitor. Worked at a high school. Nobody ever saw him, thanked him, noticed him. But every day he made sure those kids had clean classrooms, safe hallways, a place to learn. He was invisible, but he was essential. Sounds like every janitor I know, the man said, but he was listening. One day, years later, one of those kids became a doctor, came back to the school, found that janitor and said, You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. You always smiled at me, always asked how I was doing. Some days you were the only person who saw me. You're the reason I knew I mattered. The janitor was quiet for a moment. That really happened. Every day, Marcus said, in different ways, different places. We all matter to someone, even if we don't know it yet. When they reached the janitor's destination, he paused before getting out. You're him, aren't you? The driver who got the award? Marcus nodded. But you're still driving? Still driving? Still the award doesn't change who I am or what I do. It just reminds me why I do it. The janitor shook his hand, held it for a moment. Thank you. For the ride. For the story. For seeing me. Thank you for letting me. As the janitor walked away, Marcus thought about circles, about how life kept bringing him back to the same moments, the same choices, the same opportunities to make a difference. 5 years ago, he'd been the invisible one. Now, he was the one making others visible. His phone lit up with another request, then another, then another. Marcus looked at them all, remembering a night when no one wanted to ride with him. Now, there were more stories than he could collect in one night, more connections than he could make in one lifetime. but he would try, one ride at a time, one story at a time, one moment of human connection at a time. He accepted the next request, pulled into traffic, and drove into the night. Somewhere Bruce Springsteen was probably writing a song about all of this. Somewhere Keisha was working on her album, songs about invisible heroes and visible hearts. Somewhere Sarah from Ohio was playing in a club, remembering the driver who told her not to give up. And here, in this Toyota Camry that had seen rejection and redemption, frustration and joy, endings and beginnings, Marcus Williams drove on. Not because he had to anymore. The foundation and the speaking engagements had given him options, but because this was who he was now, the driver who listened, the man who saw, the one who knew that every ride was a chance for grace. The city lights blurred past, each one a life, a story, a potential connection. Marcus had started as an Uber driver who couldn't get a passenger. He'd become something more, a conductor of human experiences, a collector of stories, a reminder that everyone deserves to be seen. The radio played softly, a familiar voice singing about glory days and better times. Marcus smiled, turned it up slightly, and sang along. But he wasn't thinking about glory days. He was thinking about tonight, about tomorrow, about all the rides yet to come, because the glory wasn't in the past or the future. It was right here, right now, in this moment between pickup and drop-off, between hello and goodbye, between invisible and seen. Marcus drove on through the Jersey night, carrying stories and creating them, one ride at a time. The meter was running, but time had become irrelevant. What mattered was the journey, the connection, the moment when two strangers shared a small space and found something larger than themselves. His phone showed 5 stars, thousands of rides, countless connections. But the numbers didn't matter. What mattered was the next pickup, the next story, the next chance to make someone feel seen. The night stretched ahead, full of possibility. Marcus accepted another ride, turned toward the pickup location and smiled. Somewhere out there, someone needed a ride. Someone needed to be heard. Someone needed to know they mattered. And Marcus Williams, former Invisible Man, rejected 7 times on Super Bowl Sunday. Discovered by Bruce Springsteen, father of a rising singer, winner of Community Service Awards, but most importantly, driver of stories and keeper of connections, would be there. He would always be there, taking the next ride. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched you, if it reminded you that you matter, that your story deserves to be heard, please like and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, keep driving, keep going, keep taking the next ride. You never know who's waiting to see you. Sometimes the worst night of your life is just the beginning of everything. Sometimes a rejection is really a redirection. Sometimes Bruce Springsteen gets in your Uber, but always, always you matter. Your story matters. Keep driving. 10 years had passed since that Super Bowl Sunday. Marcus still drove, but now his car carried more than passengers. It carried a legacy. The foundation he'd started with Bruce's help had distributed over 1,000 instruments to kids who couldn't afford them. Keisha's album had won a Grammy for Best New Artist, and she dedicated it to every Uber driver, every janitor, every invisible hero who keeps the world moving. But tonight, Marcus was worried. Keisha had called him, voice shaking. "Dad, I can't do it anymore. The pressure, the expectations, I'm losing myself." She was scheduled to perform at Madison Square Garden in 3 days, her biggest show yet. But success had brought its own challenges. The girl who'd played for senior citizens was now surrounded by managers, agents, people who saw dollar signs instead of songs. Marcus picked her up from her apartment in Manhattan, a far cry from their old neighborhood in Newark. She got in the car carrying the same guitar Bruce had given her, now worn with her own stories. "Want to talk about it?" Marcus asked. "I don't even know who I am anymore, Dad. Everyone wants me to be something, edgier, softer, more commercial, more authentic. I haven't written a real song in 6 months. Everything I create gets filtered through a committee." Marcus started driving, no destination in mind, just like Bruce had done that night. Remember what Bruce told you? The guitar has more songs in it, not what others want to hear, but what needs to be sung. But what if I sing what I want and everyone leaves? What if I lose everything? Then you'll be exactly where I was 10 years ago. And look how that turned out. They drove to the old neighborhood, past the senior center where Keisha had first performed publicly. It was late, but there was a light on inside. "Let's go in," Marcus said. The night janitor, an elderly man named Eugene, recognized them immediately. "Keisha Williams, I watch all your videos. You probably don't remember me, but Eugene..." Keisha hugged him. "You used to sneak me extra cookies after my performances." "You remembered." Eugene's eyes watered. "I tell everyone I knew you before you were famous." "I'm not that famous," Keisha said. "You are to us. You know how many kids come here now with guitars wanting to play because they saw what you did? You made it okay to start small, to be imperfect, to be real." Eugene led them to the recreation room. The same chairs, the same small stage, the same intimacy that had nurtured Keisha's first real performance. "Play something," Marcus said. "Dad, it's midnight." "So? Music doesn't have business hours." Keisha sat on the small stage, the famous Grammy winner, in an empty senior center and started to play. Not one of her hits, not something the label wanted, but something new, something raw, something that had been fighting to get out. She sang about the weight of dreams achieved, about missing the simplicity of singing for joy, about the fear that success was stealing her soul. Her voice cracked, she missed chords, but it was the most honest she'd been in months. When she finished, Eugene was crying. "That's the Keisha I remember. That's the girl who made us all believe." "But it's not commercial," Keisha said. "My label would hate it." "Your label isn't here," Marcus said. "We are. The people who saw you when you were invisible. Sing for us. The rest will follow." They stayed until dawn, Keisha playing every new song she'd been afraid to share. Eugene and Marcus, her audience of two, but two who mattered more than 20,000. As the sun rose, Bruce Springsteen walked in. "Eugene called me," he said simply. "Said there was real music happening. Couldn't miss that." He sat next to Marcus, listened to Keisha play one more song. When she finished, he stood up, walked to the stage. "You know what I did before my biggest show at the Garden?" he asked Keisha. "I went back to the Stone Pony, played for 15 people, reminded myself why I started. You're doing the same thing. But what if I disappoint everyone?" "You're disappointing yourself right now. That's worse. Play what needs to be played. Sing what needs to be sung. The people who need to hear it will hear it." He pulled out his phone, made a call. "Yeah, it's me. Clear Keisha's schedule tomorrow. No interviews, no sound checks, nothing. She's going to spend the day driving with her father." The next day, Marcus and Keisha drove for 12 hours straight. Every passenger became part of their journey. A nurse heading home after losing a patient. A teacher carrying student papers, exhausted but determined. A street musician who'd been playing the same corner for 20 years, never giving up on his dream. Keisha listened to their stories, and slowly songs began to form. Real songs about real people, the kind she'd started with. "This is what I lost," she said to Marcus. "The connection, the stories, the reason. You didn't lose it. You just forgot where to look for it." That night they picked up one more passenger, a teenage girl, maybe 16, carrying a guitar case. She was crying. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "My parents just told me to give up music, said it's not practical, that I'll never make it." "They're probably right." Keisha turned around from the front seat. The girl's eyes went wide. "Oh my God, you're Keisha Williams." "I am. And 10 years ago, I was you. Can I tell you something?" The girl nodded, speechless. "Tomorrow night I'm playing Madison Square Garden, but right now I'm in my dad's Uber trying to remember why I started. You know why? Because the Garden isn't the destination. It's just another stop. The real destination is the next song, the next connection, the next moment when music makes someone feel less alone." Keisha got out, moved to the back seat with the girl. "Play me something." The girl played, nervous, imperfect, but passionate. Keisha listened, really listened, the way her father had taught her. "What's your name?" "Maria." "Maria, you're going to come to my show tomorrow. Not backstage, not VIP, but in the audience, where the real people are. And I'm going to play the kind of music that reminds us both why we started. Deal?" Maria nodded, crying happy tears now. They dropped her off, and Keisha had an idea. "Dad, I need you to drive tomorrow during the show." "What?" "I want you to pick up passengers. FaceTime me during the concert. I want to sing for them, for the real people, not just the ones who can afford garden tickets." It was crazy, but Marcus had learned that the best things usually were. The night of the Madison Square Garden show, as 20,000 people waited, Keisha walked on stage with just Bruce's old guitar. No band, no production, just her. 10 years ago," she said, "my dad was an Uber driver who couldn't get a ride on Super Bowl Sunday. Tonight, he's out there driving, picking up people who need to get somewhere. And I'm going to sing for them too." A screen lowered, showing Marcus in his car, a passenger beside him. A woman who'd just finished chemotherapy, heading home. "This is for you," Keisha said, and played her first song not to the garden, but to the woman in her father's car. The audience was confused at first, then captivated. This was different. This was real. Throughout the show, Marcus picked up passengers. A homeless veteran who'd lost everything, a single mother working 3 jobs. A businessman who'd just been diagnosed with terminal illness. Each one became part of the concert, Keisha singing directly to them, their stories woven into the performance. But the most powerful moment came when Marcus picked up a familiar passenger. Sarah from Ohio, the girl he'd driven 5 years ago when she was ready to give up. She was crying again, but for different reasons. "Keisha," Marcus said, showing her on the screen. "This is Sarah. I drove her 5 years ago. Sarah, tell Keisha what happened after that ride." Sarah, through tears, said, "I didn't give up, I kept playing. I'm not famous, probably never will be. But I teach music now to kids who can't afford lessons. Every week, I tell them about the driver who told me to keep going. Mr. Williams, you saved more than just me that night. You saved all the kids I've taught." Keisha played a song for Sarah, for all the teachers, all the quiet heroes who passed on what they'd learned. The garden show became legendary, not for its production value, but for its humanity. Reviews called it the concert that remembered why we need music. But more importantly, it reminded Keisha why she needed music. After the show, Bruce found Marcus in the parking lot, still driving, still picking up passengers. "You revolutionized concerts tonight," Bruce said. "No," Marcus replied. "We just reminded people that music isn't about the stage, it's about the connection." Bruce got in the car, like old times. "One more ride?" They drove through New York, then Jersey, picking up passengers, sharing stories. At one point they picked up a young man, early 20s, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. "Job interview tomorrow," he explained. "First one in 6 months. I'm terrified." Bruce turned around. The young man didn't recognize him in the dark. "What's the job?" Bruce asked. "Music teacher, elementary school. I know it's not much, but—" "It's everything," Bruce interrupted. "Teachers create the future. What makes you think you won't get it?" "I'm nobody special. Don't have a great resume. Just someone who loves music and kids." Bruce pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. "Give this to your interviewer. Tell them Bruce said you're exactly what they need." The young man looked at the card, then at Bruce, recognition dawning. He couldn't speak. "Everyone's somebody special," Bruce said. "Sometimes they just need someone else to see it first." They dropped him off, and Marcus realized the cycle was complete, but also continuing. Every ride created ripples that became waves, that became oceans of change. 5 more years passed, 15 years since that Super Bowl Sunday. Marcus was 68 now, officially retired from everything except driving. He'd won national awards, been featured in documentaries, had a book written about him. But every night, he still drove. Keisha had evolved from singer to activist. using her platform to highlight invisible heroes everywhere. She'd started a program called Backseat Sessions, where famous musicians performed for regular people in unexpected places. It had become a movement. One rainy Tuesday, exactly like that night 15 years ago, Marcus got a request from MetLife Stadium. He almost didn't accept it, the memory still so powerful. But something made him go. The passenger was a young woman, mid-20s, wearing a janitor's uniform. She was crying. "Rough night?" Marcus asked, the same question he'd asked hundreds of times. "I just got fired from cleaning the stadium. They said I spent too much time talking to people, not enough time cleaning. But I like hearing people's stories, you know?" Marcus smiled. "I know exactly what you mean. What's your name?" "Destiny." "Destiny, let me tell you about the time I couldn't get a single passenger on Super Bowl Sunday." He told her the whole story, every detail, every lesson. By the time he finished, they were parked outside her apartment. "Mr. Williams," she said, "what if I'm not meant for anything special? What if I'm just supposed to be invisible?" "Then be the best invisible you can be. But here's the secret. Nobody's really invisible. We all shine for someone. You just have to keep shining until they find you." 2 weeks later, Marcus got a call from Bruce. "I need you to pick someone up. Special passenger." The address was a community center in Newark. The passenger was Destiny, but she was transformed, bright-eyed, excited. "Mr. Williams, after you drove me, I applied for a job at a senior center. They hired me not just to clean, but to run activities, to listen to their stories. They said my application essay about invisible heroes was the best they'd ever read." She paused, then added, "I told them about you. They want you to come speak." Marcus did speak to a room full of elderly people who'd been forgotten by the world, but not by Destiny. She'd learned their names, their stories, their dreams deferred but not destroyed. After his talk, one elderly woman approached him. "I remember you," she said. "You drove me to my husband's funeral 10 years ago. You stayed with me an extra hour just listening. I never forgot." Marcus didn't remember the specific ride. There had been so many. But he remembered the feeling, the purpose, the reason he kept driving. That night, there was a celebration. 15 years since that Super Bowl Sunday. Bruce had organized it, invited everyone whose life had been touched by that one ride. The venue was the same diner where Bruce had taken Marcus that first night. The place was packed. Sarah from Ohio was there with 3 of her students. Maria, the girl Keisha had met in the car, now a successful songwriter. Eugene, the janitor, retired but still vibrant. The young man who'd gotten the teaching job with Bruce's recommendation, now a principal. Dozens of passengers Marcus had driven, all with stories of how that ride had changed them. Keisha performed, but not alone. She invited everyone to sing, a chorus of invisible heroes made visible. Bruce stood up to speak. 15 years ago, I got in Marcus's car because I needed to remember something. I needed to remember that fame isn't the destination, it's the vehicle. What matters is who you pick up along the way. He turned to Marcus. You taught me that every ride is a chance for grace. You reminded me that the best songs aren't performed in stadiums, but in the space between 2 people sharing a moment of truth. Marcus stood up, overwhelmed by the room full of people he'd touched without even knowing it. I was just driving, he said. No, Bruce corrected. You were conducting a symphony of human connection. Every passenger was a note. Every ride was a movement. And together you created something beautiful. Destiny raised her hand. Mr. Williams, I have something to tell you. The senior center where I work, we want to name it after you. The Marcus Williams Center for Listening. Marcus couldn't speak. Keisha hugged him, whispered, You deserve this, Dad. But Marcus was thinking about tomorrow, about the rides he'd take, the stories he'd hear. Awards and buildings were nice, but they weren't the point. I appreciate it, he finally said, but can we name it something else? The Invisible Heroes Center, for everyone who keeps going when no one's watching. The room erupted in approval. Bruce started playing his guitar, a new song he'd written about a driver and the passengers who changed him as much as he changed them. As the celebration continued, Marcus stepped outside. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the lights like mirrors. His phone buzzed with a ride request. He looked back at the diner, at all the people celebrating, then at his phone. The pickup was close, just around the corner. Marcus accepted the ride. The passenger was a young man, maybe 20, carrying a heavy backpack. He looked exhausted, defeated. "Where to?" Marcus asked. "Honestly, I don't know. I just needed to get in a car, to move, to think. Is that okay?" "It's perfect," Marcus said, starting to drive. "Want to tell me what's going on?" The young man's story poured out. Art student, crushing debt, family pressure to quit, a dream dying under the weight of practicality. Marcus listened, really listened, then said, "Let me tell you about a night 15 years ago when I couldn't get a single passenger." As he told the story, he saw the young man's posture change, hope creeping back into his eyes. "You really think I should keep going?" the young man asked. "I think the world needs your art the way it needed my daughter's music, the way it needed every person who got in this car and shared their story. Don't deprive us of your gift just because the road is hard." When they reached the young man's destination, he decided to go home, to talk to his parents, to fight for his dream. He paused before getting out. "What's your name?" he asked Marcus. "Marcus Williams." "Mr. Williams, I'm going to remember this ride forever." "Good. And someday, when you're successful, when your art is in galleries, you'll give someone else a ride. Maybe not literally, but you'll see someone invisible and make them visible. That's all any of us can do." The young man nodded, understanding passing between them. Marcus drove back to the diner. The celebration was still going, but he didn't go in immediately. He sat in his car, looking at the stats on his phone. 15 years, over 50,000 rides, countless stories. But the numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was in every connection, every moment of grace, every time someone invisible became visible. His phone buzzed with another ride request. Marcus smiled, knowing that inside the diner people were wondering where he was. But this was where he belonged, behind the wheel, ready for the next story, the next connection, the next chance to make a difference. He accepted the ride, pulled into traffic, and disappeared into the night. Not invisible anymore, but choosing to blend into the background, where the real work happened, where the real stories lived, where every ride was a chance to change everything. The celebration would go on without him. The stories would be told and retold. The Marcus Williams Center for Invisible Heroes would be built, but Marcus himself would keep driving, keep listening, keep proving that the worst night of your life might just be the beginning of your purpose. 15 years ago, he'd been rejected 7 times on Super Bowl Sunday. Tonight, he was exactly where he was meant to be, still driving, still listening, still changing lives one ride at a time. And somewhere in Jersey, Bruce Springsteen stood in the diner doorway, watching Marcus's taillights disappear into the distance, and smiled. He understood. The show must go on, but not on stage. The show goes on in every car, every conversation, every moment when one human being says to another, "Where to? I'm listening." That's the real music. That's the real destination. That's the real glory. And it never, ever ends.